The morning of September 14, 2027, started like any other Tuesday. The emergency broadcast broke through Sarah Mitchell's morning playlist while she was pouring coffee in her Chicago apartment. Her hands trembled as the mug slipped, shattering across the kitchen floor. The screen showed massive metallic structures descending through the clouds over major cities worldwide. People all over the world watched in horror as sleek, angular ships appeared above New York, Beijing, London, Mumbai, and dozens of other cities within hours. They were enormous, each one the size of a small city, blocking out the sun and casting shadows that stretched for miles. The crafts were scary beautiful, with patterns that looked like they were moving and pulsing with a strange blue light. President Catherine Walsh spoke to the country from a secret bunker. Even though she looked scared, her voice was steady. "We are not alone in the universe, and it looks like our visitors don't mean well. All military units are on high alert. Citizens are advised to shelter in place." Major James Cooper, stationed at Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado, scrambled with his unit as fighter jets roared into the sky. Their orders were clear: assess the threat. But something strange happened as they got closer to the nearest ship that was hovering over Denver. The alien ship shot a beam of concentrated energy that didn't blow up, it just shut down all the electronic systems it touched. Like dead birds, jets fell from the sky. Cooper was able to get out, but he had to watch as his plane spiraled down. On the ground, entire city blocks went dark. Cars stalled on highways. The phones died in the middle of a call. The aliens had technology that could disable Earth's defenses with pinpoint accuracy, without killing a lot of people. It was a demonstration of absolute superiority. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a quantum physicist at MIT, watched the invasion happen from her lab. Her analytical mind raced through possibilities. The energy signatures didn't fit with anything we know about physics. These beings had learned to control powers that people barely understood. Elena shook her head sadly when her co-worker Marcus Chen said they might be able to work things out. "You don't bring hundreds of warships to the table to talk. You bring them to conquer." For 72 hours, the world held its breath. The aliens didn't ask for anything or send any messages. They simply hovered, an oppressive presence that drained hope from billions of souls. Parents held their children tight. Strangers shared shelters and supplies. Religious leaders preached both apocalypse and salvation. During those dark times, it looked like the end of the world was near. On the fourth day, everything changed. It started over Tokyo. Engineers at the city's emergency command center saw something strange on their backup analog systems. The huge ship above the city was tilting a little, and its patterns were flashing. Reports from all over the world started coming in within minutes. The alien vessels were experiencing systematic failures. Michael Torres, a radio operator in Mexico City who had kept one of the few working communications networks going, sent out the impossible news: "The ships, they are falling." But they didn't crash with the force that would have destroyed cities. Instead, they descended in controlled descents, emergency systems apparently engaging. It was as if someone had simply turned them off. The great warships settled onto open fields, into oceans, across deserts, wherever they could land without destroying population centers. The global response was stunned silence, then chaos. Sarah, who was still hiding in the basement of her apartment building with 40 other people, heard the news on a hand-crank radio. A woman named Beth started crying, not from fear this time, but from overwhelming relief. "Is it over?" she whispered. "Are we safe?" Nobody knew the answer. President Walsh convened an emergency session with world leaders via secured satellite communications. The debate was fierce. The Premier of China wanted to strike right away while the invaders were weak. The President of Russia wanted to capture and question people. India's Prime Minister urged caution. They still didn't know what had happened or if it might reverse. General Marcus Stone, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, stood in front of the assembly with a heavy heart. "We've heard that alien survivors are coming out of the crashed ships. They look confused, unarmed. We have them surrounded in several places. Suggestions?" Walsh asked. "Containment," Stone replied. "We establish secure perimeters, prevent any escape, and figure out what the hell just happened." But He stopped and thought about what to say. "They're not fighting back. Whatever broke their ships has left them powerless." Dr. Rodriguez was one of the first civilians to be allowed to see the crash site in Denver. She walked up to the huge ship that had settled in a wheat field outside the city, crushing crops beneath its weight. She was protected by a full military escort. The hull was still warm, humming with residual energy. No one knew if the access hatch opened on purpose or by accident, But what came out shocked everyone who was there. The aliens looked like people and were about 7 feet tall. Their arms and legs were long, and their skin shone like oil on water. Their large eyes held an almost familiar intelligence, but also something else, fear. Fear that is clear and pure. One of them fell down right away, and Elena's medical training kicked in before she could stop herself. She ran up to the being and used her portable equipment to scan it. Its respiratory system is failing, she called out. The air, it's bad for them. Major Cooper, recovered from his ejection and now commanding the ground operation, made a split-second decision that would change everything. Get the hazmat team's oxygen tanks. Modify the masks. Do it now. Within minutes, they were providing emergency aid to beings who had come to conquer them. The aliens' big eyes were on Elena as she changed the flow of oxygen. Something passed between them in that moment, a recognition of shared mortality, perhaps. Of the universal desire to simply survive. Similar things happened all over the world. Doctors in Cairo treated aliens who had radiation poisoning from their own broken reactors. Engineers in Sao Paulo helped survivors get off of ships that were sinking before the pressure crushed them. In Sydney, firefighters pulled unconscious aliens from burning wreckage. Humanity, facing its would-be conquerors at their most vulnerable, chose mercy over vengeance. But the question was still there, what had made them fall? The answer would be much stranger than anyone had thought, and it would show something deep about the blue planet that these aliens had completely missed. The United Nations building in New York was still standing after the invasion, and now it was the site of the most important meeting in human history. Representatives from every nation crowded into the General Assembly Hall, where screens displayed live feeds from containment sites across the planet. President Walsh stepped up to the microphone. She looked tired, but she was determined. We stand at a crossroads. 3 days ago, we faced extinction. We are responsible for the lives of thousands of aliens today. What do we do with them, is a simple question, but the answer will tell us a lot about who we are as a species. The French ambassador stood. They came to destroy us. Self-defense demands we eliminate the threat. And become monsters in the process, the Kenyan representative asked. We have an opportunity to show that humanity is better than violence. The argument went on for hours. Finally, after heated discussion and multiple votes, a resolution emerged: containment and study, not destruction. Researchers would work to figure out what had happened and whether the threat might come back while the aliens stayed in safe places. But there would be no torture, no executions, and no revenge. Many people would later say that it was the best hour for humanity, even though it didn't feel that way at the time. Dr. Rodriguez found herself leading one of 12 international research teams, based at the Denver site. The place was an odd mix of a military base, a research center, and a makeshift hospital. Nearly 200 aliens were housed there, recovering from various injuries and the ongoing effects of Earth's apparently hostile environment. She had saved her first alien patient, and they were still alive. Through a combination of translated mathematical concepts and crude pictographic communication, they learned his name was something like Kale, though human vocal cords couldn't quite manage the actual pronunciation. He was, as far as they could determine, some sort of engineer or technician. During their third week of study, Marcus Chen, Elena's co-worker who had joined her team, made the big discovery. He burst into the laboratory where Elena was analyzing samples of the alien hull material. You need to see this right now. The revelation was almost absurd in its simplicity. The aliens' technology was very advanced, but it had one big problem. It only worked with a quantum network that was only present in a very narrow range of electromagnetic waves. Earth's magnetosphere, its atmospheric composition, and solar radiation created a unique environmental signature. The alien systems weren't just incompatible, they were actively disrupted by Earth's natural conditions. They never checked for this, Marcus said, looking at the data. They looked at us from space, saw our simple technology, and thought we would be easy to beat. They never thought about how our primitive world might not work with their systems at all. Elena felt both relieved and amazed at the same time. We didn't beat them. The Earth did. But that was just the start of understanding what happened. The real work started when the communication barriers began to fall. Sarah Mitchell, a teacher in Chicago whose morning coffee had marked the start of the invasion, worked as a volunteer at her local containment center. She'd always been good with languages, and the work of teaching aliens basic English gave her purpose in a world still reeling from trauma. She had a student who was a young alien, at least by their standards. She called her Vera. The alien had been injured in the crash, her left arm damaged by debris. Sarah spent hours each day with Vera, using pictures, gestures, and patience to build a vocabulary. 3 weeks into their sessions, Vera suddenly started to speak in broken English one afternoon. Why, you, help? Sarah paused, considering the question. Because you needed help, she finally said. Vera's large eyes studied her for a long moment. We, come, destroy. I know, Sarah said. But you can't now. And you're hurt. So we help. The concept seemed to genuinely confuse Vera. Through later sessions, a picture of the alien civilization began to take shape. It was one based on hierarchy, efficiency, and conquest. Their society didn't help weak people, it got rid of them. The strong ruled, the weak served. Not only was the idea of helping a defeated enemy strange, it was also impossible to understand. Major Li Wei saw the same things at a military containment site outside of Beijing. The aliens viewed humanity's mercy as either strategic deception or profound stupidity. They kept waiting for the torture, the executions, the revenge that never came. One night, Li Wei had tea with an alien leader named Jin. The being was clearly important because of the way other aliens treated him and the unique markings on his body. They could now have simple conversations thanks to a translation program they had made with the help of AI. Your kind is weak, Jin said, not out of anger but as if it were a fact. You waste resources on people who can't help. You give up efficiency for feelings. This is why we chose your world, we thought you would be easily subdued. Li Wei took a sip of his tea and thought about it. And yet, here you are. Defeated not by our strength, but by your assumptions. A fortunate accident, Zhen countered. Your planet's unique properties. That's all. Li Wei smiled a little and said, maybe. But it wasn't luck that chose to keep you alive when you were helpless. That was a choice. It wasn't the most efficient one, but it was ours to make. The first big event happened at the Moscow facility in the 4th week. 30 aliens tried to take over a supply truck so they could get to one of their crashed ships and fix it somehow. The Russian police quickly surrounded them with guns drawn. For a brief moment, violence seemed like it would happen. Then, Commander Alexei Volkov did something surprising based on his experience dealing with hostage situations. He lowered his weapon. You're trying to go home, he said through a translator. I understand. But your ships are dead. You can't fix them, not here, not with what you have. Fighting us won't change that. The alien leader, a scarred veteran warrior, growled something in their language. The translator sputtered, then, kill us. We are defeated. End it. Volkov shook his head. That's not how this works. You're going back inside. We will keep you safe. And we're going to work together to solve this. Whether you like it or not. The standoff went on for 2 hours. In the end, the aliens returned peacefully, not because they wanted to, but because they genuinely didn't understand what else to do in the face of such strange captors. Dr. Rodriguez made another discovery in Denver that changed everything. Kale had been growing increasingly ill despite the oxygen support. His biology was slowly failing in ways they couldn't quite address. Elena asked him directly what his people needed to stay alive for a long time because she was so desperate. Through labored breath and the translation device, Kale explained. His kind needed trace elements that aren't naturally found in large enough amounts on Earth. Without them, they would slowly deteriorate. How long? Elena asked quietly. Months? Maybe, year. Then, everyone dies. Elena felt the weight of that responsibility settle on her shoulders. These beings had come to kill all of humanity, but it felt wrong on a deep level to let them die slowly because they didn't fit in with the environment. She called the United Nations Scientific Council that night. We need to put together their environmental needs, she told the group. It's possible, but hard and costly. If we don't, we're condemning them to a slow death. The argument started up again. Why spend resources on former enemies? Why not let nature take its course? But ultimately, the same sentiment that had saved them from execution prevailed. Humanity would try to keep them alive. The aliens watched these debates through their limited access to human communications. They saw the protests from people who had lost loved ones when their ships crashed. They heard the arguments about how resources were being wasted. And they saw, time and again, the decision to help them anyway. During one of their evening talks, Zhen, the alien commander in Beijing, asked Major Li Wei about it. Zhen said, "We don't understand your kind. By every measure of power we know, you should have killed us. The best way to do it. The answer that is safe. Yet you choose, this." He pointed to the medical equipment, the synthesizers that were being built to make the nutrients they needed, and the people who were working hard to keep their former enemies alive. Maybe that's why you lost, Li Wei suggested gently. You measured the wrong kind of power. Zhen fell silent, his large eyes reflecting something that might have been the beginning of understanding. As week 6 arrived, the relationship between humans and aliens had evolved into something unprecedented. Not quite friends, the wounds were too fresh and the memories were too painful. But a strange coexistence had emerged. Aliens worked alongside human engineers to safely dismantle their most dangerous technologies. They shared medical knowledge that helped both species. And little by little, they started to see their captors as more than just weak prey. The question of what to do long-term loomed large. The aliens couldn't go home, their quantum communication network had collapsed with their ships, and Earth's environment prevented building a new one. They were stuck there, maybe for good. But as Sarah Mitchell walked through the Chicago facility one evening, she overheard Vera speaking with another young alien in halting English. They were discussing a human movie they'd been shown, some animated film about finding family in unexpected places. Strange, Vera said. But, not bad. Maybe, people aren't that different. Sarah smiled to herself. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a start. And sometimes, a start was enough. The real lessons, however, were still to come. Humanity was about to show their unwilling guests what true strength looked like, and it had nothing to do with weapons or technology. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the observation room, watching Kale work alongside 3 human engineers. They were trying to carefully remove a power core from one of the alien ships. This was dangerous work that needed accuracy and trust. She never would have thought this would happen 2 months ago. Marcus Chen said, his really smiling. I didn't know they could do that. Elena nodded. Over the past weeks, they'd learned that while alien facial expressions were subtle, they existed. Kale's version of a smile was a slight brightening of his skin tone and a softening around his large eyes. He said this is the first time he's felt useful since the crash, he told me yesterday. In their culture, not being able to help is embarrassing. The work program had been controversial. Some people said that aliens shouldn't be able to use their own technology. But supporters pointed out that the humans working alone might trigger something catastrophic. Better to work together, understanding the technology as they dismantled it. The fact that most aliens were so willing to work together surprised everyone. They weren't motivated by gratitude, that feeling didn't seem familiar to them. But the purposeless existence of captivity was apparently worse than working with their captors. Across the world, similar programs emerged. In agricultural containment facilities, aliens learned to help grow food using human methods. In medical centers, their advanced biological knowledge was carefully integrated with human medicine, leading to breakthroughs in treating both species. In educational facilities, they taught mathematics and physics that expanded human understanding, while learning human history and culture in return. It was in Cairo that the first real breakthrough in understanding occurred. Dr. Amira Hassan, an anthropologist, had been conducting extensive interviews with an alien elder named Theron. Theron, on the other hand, stayed stuck in his way of thinking, unlike the younger aliens who were slowly changing. For weeks, their talks had been frustrating circles of not understanding each other. After that, Amira did something else. She took Theron to a regular Cairo hospital that treats people, not the containment facility. They saw a young girl recovering from surgery, and her parents were sleeping in chairs next to her bed after being up for 3 days straight. They saw older volunteers reading to kids in the pediatric ward. They saw doctors working 2 shifts without complaining. And they witnessed a community coming together to donate blood for a family they'd never met. Theron said through the translator, "This is not very efficient. Those parents give up sleep, which hurts their ability to get things done. The older volunteers don't add any value that can be measured. The doctors work beyond the point where their brains are at their best. The people who give blood make themselves weaker for people they don't know. This makes no logical sense." Amira smiled sadly. "No, it doesn't. Not by your logic. But by our standards? This is what makes us human. We don't just live, we care. We give up things. We love." "Love," Theron said again, slowly, feeling the word's shape. "We have studied this concept. A chemical reaction is a biological need for reproduction and protecting offspring." Amira said, "It's more than that. It's choosing to care even when it costs you something. Even when it's inefficient." Theron wanted to see more that night. Amira showed him recordings from around the world, the rebuilding efforts, the memorials for those lost in the crashes, the celebrations when aliens and humans achieved something together. She showed him art made in response to the invasion, music written about fear and hope, and poetry written about the end that never came. Something changed in Theron's big eyes. You make meaning from nothing. From hurt. He struggled to find the right words and said, "This is a power we don't have." In Chicago, Sarah Mitchell's work with Vera had progressed far beyond simple language lessons. The young alien had become fascinated with human culture, asking endless questions about everything from why humans kept pets to why they sang songs. Sarah brought her guitar to their session one cold November night. Vera was very interested in what Sarah was doing when she played a simple, slow, and haunting song called Amazing Grace. "What does this do?" Vera asked when the song ended. "No reason," Sarah said. "It just makes people feel something. Makes them remember they're not alone." "Play more," Vera requested. Sarah played for an hour, singing songs from different times and cultures. Vera sat motionless, her skin patterns shifting in colors Sarah had never seen before. Finally, the alien spoke in a quiet voice. "My mother sang at the crash. Before warriors came. Before I found out that songs were a sign of weakness." Vera's voice held something Sarah recognized despite the alien intonation: grief. "Your music makes me think back. This hurts. Why do you pick this pain?" Sarah set down her guitar carefully. "Because it's not just pain. It's memory. It's all about connection. It's proof that we lived, loved, and made a difference. The pain means we had something worth losing." For a long time, Vera didn't say anything. Then, after a moment of hesitation, she started to hum. It was a strange, haunting sound that made Sarah's arms stand up. It was beautiful and sad and completely strange, but Sarah understood it perfectly. "Thank you," Sarah whispered, "for sharing that with me. You don't kill me. Not torture. You are a teacher. You share pain through music. I don't get people. But I begin to want to understand." Humor was the unexpected source of the breakthrough in Sao Paulo. Lieutenant Carlos Mendez had been assigned to guard duty at the local facility, a job he found monumentally boring. To pass the time, he started telling his partner jokes, mostly dumb puns. One day, he noticed one of the aliens, a technician named LYSS, seemed to be paying attention. "Why did the Scarecrow get an award?" Carlos asked his partner. "Why?" "Because he was the best at what he did." His partner groaned. LYSS made a noise through her translator that could have been confusion or interest. "You don't get it?" Carlos asked the alien directly. "Outstanding, standing out. In a field. Because scarecrows are in fields. It's, okay, yeah, it's stupid." "Stupid?" LYSS repeated. "Means not smart. Not good. Not funny. But, you laugh at something bad." "Yeah," Carlos grinned. "That's kind of the point. It's so bad that it's funny." For the next few weeks, Carlos worked hard to teach LYSS about humor. Why sarcasm was funny. Why physical comedy worked. Why humans laughed at their own mistakes and misfortunes. LYSS had a hard time with most of it, but she kept trying. Then one day, as Carlos nearly tripped over his own feet, LYSS made a sound that could only be described as a laugh. "You are outstanding in falling," she said carefully, clearly proud of her attempt at a pun. Carlos laughed so hard that he had to sit down. The other guards were shocked and stared. A joke had just been made by an alien. Word about the event spread quickly. It seemed trivial, but it represented something profound. Cultural exchange was flowing both ways. The aliens weren't just learning how to live with humans, they were also learning how to be better than they were. Commander Volkov saw that the aliens were acting differently at the Moscow base. They began to self-organize, not along strict hierarchical lines as before, but based on interest and ability. They asked permission before taking supplies instead of operating on strict rationing. They were worried when people or other aliens got hurt. One night, the alien warrior leader, who had been given the name Stryker, came up to Volkov with a strange request. "Teach me your combat," Stryker said through the translator. Volkov raised one eyebrow. "Why would I want to teach you how to fight?" "Not to fight," Stryker clarified. "To understand. You train warriors with discipline and rules. You call it honor. We only train for efficiency in my culture. To kill quickly and completely. But your warriors have something else. I can see it in you. A strength that doesn't have to do with killing." Volkov thought about this. "It's about protecting. Fighting when you must, but holding back when you can. Choosing not to kill even when you could. This seems weak." Then why do you want to learn it? Stryker's skin rippled, which is the alien way of showing that he was upset. Because I start to think, maybe I don't know what real strength is. The lessons began the next day. Not only did Volkov teach Stryker martial arts, but he also taught him the philosophy behind them, like discipline, restraint, respect for opponents, and fighting to disable rather than destroy. Other aliens watched and eventually asked to join. Within weeks, a strange dojo had formed where human and alien practiced together. The real test came when a human guard, a young soldier named Petrov, made a mistake during a supply distribution and shorted the aliens' rations. Stryker went up to the scared soldier before his boss could step in. The building got tense as people waited for violence. Instead, Stryker placed a hand on Petrov's shoulder, a gesture he'd learned from humans. Mistakes happen, Stryker said in careful English. You fix. We wait. No harm. Volkov felt something shift in that moment. These conquerors were learning how to be citizens and members of the community. People. But not all of the changes went smoothly. An event at the Berlin facility almost wiped out all the progress that had been made. A group of aliens found out that they could use an unsecured tablet to get on the internet. They saw video of the invasion, including the ships coming down, the fear on people's faces, and the deaths from crashes. They saw memorial services for the dead, children crying for lost parents, cities with massive craters where ships had fallen on populated areas despite attempts to avoid them. The aliens were heartbroken. They had been told that humans were simple creatures who wouldn't fight back. They hadn't thought of them as fully aware, feeling beings. Seeing the pain they had caused, even by accident, broke something deep in their understanding. 3 aliens tried to commit suicide that night. As part of the crisis response team, Dr. Rodriguez was called in. She was sitting across from Kale, who had been one of the 3. We are monsters, Kale said simply. We came to kill. We deserve death. No, Elena said with determination. You have to live with what you did. To get it. To be better. Living and changing is hard, dying is easy. How can you let us go? Elena took a deep breath. I can't speak for everyone. Some people lost too much, they may never forgive. But I can tell you this, we chose to save you when we could have let you die. That means we see potential in you. The chance to be more than you were. Don't throw that away by giving up. The incident led to new protocols. Aliens would be gradually exposed to human history and the invasion's impact, with counseling support. Many aliens requested the truth, no matter how painful. They wanted to know what they had been a part of. Theron, the older alien, asked to speak at a memorial service in Cairo for the people who died when his ship crashed into a neighborhood. Some of the human survivors didn't want anything to do with him, while others were curious. Through the translator, Theron stood before the gathering and spoke, I do not ask forgiveness. I do not deserve it. I came to your world believing you were lesser beings. I was wrong. You showed me mercy when I would have shown you none. You taught me that real power doesn't come from weapons or technology, but from choosing to be kind instead of mean. I will try to honor that lesson for the rest of my life. This is all I can offer, a promise that I have learned. That I have changed. The room was silent. Then a woman stood, her daughter had died in the crash. Everyone held their breath. My child believed in second chances, she said quietly. She thought that people could change. I'm going to try to believe that too. Because of her. Not quite forgiveness. But there was a chance of something more, living together, understanding each other, and maybe even peace. As the 3rd month came to an end, facilities all over the world reported the same thing. Aliens and humans were finding ways to get along that no one expected. Eating together turned into cultural exchanges. Work programs turned into collaborative innovations. Guard duty evolved into conversations and sometimes friendships. Vera asked Sarah one evening, during one of their now daily sessions, do all humans choose this way? The hard way of mercy? Not all, Sarah said. We're not perfect. We have cruelty and hatred too. But a lot of us make different choices a lot of the time. We can choose, and that's what makes us human. We were not taught to choose, Vera said softly. Only to obey. To be efficient. To win. But now I'm making a choice. To learn. To comprehend. To be different than I was. Sarah smiled. Then you are more human than you think. The exchange was no longer just one way. It wasn't just that people were teaching, they were also changing because of it. And while this was going on, both species were learning that the gap between conqueror and friend was smaller than anyone had thought. But the best news was still to come. The indomitable spirit that had survived every disaster in human history was about to show its true power in ways that would change both species forever. The dead of winter brought new challenges. It was hard for power grids to keep alien life support systems running. Resources grew tighter. And yet, humanity doubled down on its commitment to its uninvited guests. 4 months after the invasion, President Walsh spoke to the world in early January. "We are having trouble with money. We face division. Some people want to know why we spend so much on people who try to kill us. I'll tell you why. It's because we're proving something more important than just staying alive. We're showing that civilization means picking the harder right over the easier wrong. We're showing the universe that the best thing about being human isn't our weapons, it's that we won't become monsters, even when we have every right to do so." There were a lot of different opinions about the speech, but it made something clear. It wasn't just about the aliens anymore, it was about how people acted when they were put to the test. Dr. Rodriguez's team in Denver made a big discovery that changed everything. They had learned from Kale and other alien engineers that Earth's environment made it impossible for large-scale alien technology to work, but small-scale applications might be possible if they were protected. Marcus Chen said at an international conference, "If we can shield it correctly, we could adapt some of their medical technology. We're talking about regenerative therapies that could eliminate most cancers, repair nerve damage, extend healthy human lifespan by decades." Everyone in the room started talking excitedly. Kale, who was watching through a video link, raised a concern through his translator. "This technology, it's ours. What our civilization has done. And yet we are prisoners. Why should we share?" The question was still in the air. Elena answered carefully. "Because we told you first. Our medicine, our tools, and what we know. We didn't have to. We made the choice. You have the same choice now." Kale was quiet for a long time. "In my culture, knowledge is power. You keep it from your enemies." Elena said, "Then pick something else. Choose a new culture." 3 days later, Kale and 15 other alien scientists officially offered to share their medical knowledge with people. Not all aliens agreed with the choice. There were deep divisions in the alien community between those who were adapting to human values and those who were holding on to their old hierarchies. But enough people agreed that work really started. The collaboration showed something surprising. The ways that humans and aliens do science worked perfectly together. Aliens had better technology, but they had stopped asking why hundreds of years ago. People were always curious, but they didn't have the right tools to find answers to some questions. They could do what neither of them could do alone. A team from Tokyo worked together to make clean energy systems using ideas from aliens and human creativity. They made ways to clean water in Cape Town that could end the lack of it. They came up with building methods in New York that could make cities stronger than they were before. But it was the smaller, more personal moments that really showed how powerful people are. Sarah Mitchell took her 5th grade class to see the Chicago facility. The kids had learned about the invasion, but this was the first time they had ever seen aliens in person. The grown-ups were scared because kids could be unpredictable and no one knew how the aliens would act. 10-year-old Marcus Williams came up to Vera with the fearless curiosity of a child. "Why are your eyes so big?" he asked directly. Sarah began to say she was sorry, but Vera stopped her. "For seeing in the dark," she said in her better English. "My world, not as bright as this one." "That's cool." Marcus smiled. "Do you have any kids? How are they?" Vera's skin tone changed, which is the alien version of sadness. "I have kids. In my world. I miss them. Like parents miss their kids." Marcus thought about this for a moment before reaching into his backpack. He said, "My mom died when I was 6, in a matter-of-fact way. I have a picture of her. Would you like to see?" He showed Vera the picture, which was of a woman smiling and holding a much younger Marcus. Vera carefully touched the picture. "Beautiful," she said in a soft voice. "You are lucky to have memory. Do you have any pictures of your kids?" Marcus asked. "No. Our ships, everything was destroyed in the crash." Marcus nodded with a serious look on his face. "That stinks. I'm sorry." Vera was clearly moved by the simple empathy of a child who had every reason to hate aliens. Her skin got brighter and then darker, going through different feelings. "Thank you," she finally managed. "Your words, they help." The visit changed both the kids and the aliens. The kids left understanding that the monsters from the invasion were people. Different, yes, but people nonetheless. The aliens saw innocence that they were about to destroy, and it hit them in a new way. Commander Volkov put together a cultural festival in Moscow. The idea seemed absurd, celebrating with former enemies, but he insisted. He said, "Culture is what makes us different from machines. We need to show them what makes us human if we want them to understand us." There was music from every culture, art displays, food from dozens of countries, and demonstrations of human creativity in all its forms at the festival. Aliens walked around the exhibits, amazed by how many different ways people express themselves. Stryker, the warrior who had been learning human martial arts, stood in front of a painting of the siege of Leningrad. The painting showed how humans went through unimaginable hardship but survived through community and hope. He stared at it for over an hour. "I do not understand this," he finally told Volkov. "They should have given up. The efficient solution. They instead suffered. Why?" "Because surrender meant giving up who they were," Volkov said. "Sometimes, just staying alive isn't enough. Sometimes, you have to survive as yourself, with your dignity and values intact. Even if it costs more. Especially then." Stryker's skin rippled with the alien version of deep thought. This is the power that President Walsh talked about. This, refusal to be practical when principle is more important. Volkov smiled and said, "Now you're getting it." The festival ended with a performance by both humans and aliens, a piece of music composed together, blending human instruments with alien vocalizations. It was odd, lovely, and not perfect, but it was something new, real cooperation between species. Major Li Wei was in a crisis in Beijing that would put everything the aliens had learned to the test. A radical group of people who call themselves Earth First used explosives to attack the containment facility. Their goal was clear: kill all the aliens. The attack happened at dawn. Explosives broke through the outer wall, and armed people rushed in to kill everyone. Security forces came, but there were hostages, including both human workers and aliens who were caught in the crossfire. Li Wei found himself in an impossible situation, pinned down with 3 guards and 7 aliens, including Commander Zhen. The attackers were getting closer, and they didn't have enough guns. The leader of Earth First yelled, "Give us the aliens, and we'll let the humans live." Li Wei looked at Zhen, expecting him to be scared or angry. He didn't see anger, he saw resignation. "Go," Zhen said in a low voice. "We are the reason they hate. We will give up to stop people from dying." "No," Li Wei said with certainty. He used the radio to say to the attackers, "You want hostages. You have them. All of us, both humans and aliens. You want to kill them, you'll have to go through us." The standoff went on for 6 hours. Li Wei talked to the attackers during that time, trying to get them to understand. Yes, these beings came to take over us. But they didn't succeed, and we chose to be kind. If we kill them now without any reason, what does that make us? How are we better than them? The leader yelled back, "They killed our people. And we've killed ours too, over the years. Doesn't make it okay. We're supposed to be better. We're supposed to rise above." Li Wei put his life on the line to protect the aliens. They heard him passionately argue that they were people who deserved to live. And something important changed in the way they thought. When Special Forces finally ended the standoff by taking out the attackers with non-lethal rounds, Zhen went up to Li Wei. The proud alien commander, who had always thought his species was better than all others, knelt in front of the human officer. "I understand now," Zhen said. "True strength is not the power to destroy, but the courage to protect even those who don't deserve it. You have taught me that honor comes from doing the right thing, not from winning. I was wrong about your species. About everything. The event changed everything." There were videos of Li Wei's stand all over the world. People saw humans and aliens standing together against hate, so other attacks were planned but never happened. The message was clear: people had made a choice, and nothing would stop them from following it. But maybe the most powerful example of what people can do came from an unexpected source. The alien elder Theron asked to meet with the leaders of the world. Everyone who was there was shocked by what he said. "I have lived in 3 of your centuries," Theron said. "I have witnessed my species conquer 40 worlds. Always the same: we arrive, we overwhelm, we incorporate or eliminate. Efficient. Useful. Without feeling." He stopped for a moment, and his old face looked like it was in awe. "I never once thought about whether we were right during all that time and all those victories. Power proved to be right. Winning showed value. But you?" He pointed at the people who were there. "You beat us not with strength, but with its opposite. With vulnerability chosen on purpose. With a sacrifice that didn't help you at all. With mercy that put everything on the line." President Walsh leaned forward. "What do you mean, Theron?" I'm saying that my species has been wrong for longer than your civilization has been around. We measured strength in all the wrong ways. True power, the kind that transforms, that builds, that lasts, it comes not from what you can destroy but from what you choose to create and protect. This power is natural for people. His skin got darker from shame. We have to learn it, so please teach us. There was no sound in the room. The Secretary General of the United Nations then spoke very carefully. Are you asking to stay? Forever? I am asking for the chance to learn how to be better than we have been. To make a new culture out of the ashes of our pride. Here, on this world that beat us with kindness. Please allow it. It would take time and discussion to make the decision, but at that moment, everyone there knew something important had happened. The people who had won weren't just beaten, they had changed. And by refusing to become what its enemies had been, humanity had shown a strength greater than any weapon. Elena Rodriguez, who was watching the trial on a live stream, had tears in her eyes. Kale, who was sitting next to her in the observation room, saw. Why are you crying? He asked. This is a win for your kind. Elena smiled and said, I'm not crying because I'm sad. It's relief, happiness, hope. Feelings are hard to understand. Teach me, Kale said. Not just the science. Help me figure out these problems. I never knew these feelings that give you strength existed. I'll do my best, Elena said. Let's try together. 5 months after the invasion, the world had changed as winter turned into early spring. Not perfectly, there was still anger, fear, and division. But the path was clear. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and chosen not to rule over the defeated, but to take the harder path of rehabilitation and living together. And by making that choice, people showed something that went beyond planets and species, the unbreakable power of compassion, the unbreakable strength of hope, and the power to change the world by choosing to see the humanity, or the potential for it, in everyone, even former enemies. The aliens had come to teach Earth a lesson about power. Instead, they were the ones who were learning what real power was. Spring brought new life in more than one way. 6 months after the invasion, the containment facilities were no longer jails but communities. Fences stayed up for safety, but the mood changed from being held captive to living together. Sarah Mitchell walked through the new common area at the Chicago facility. This space was made by both humans and aliens. The strange sculptures combined human and alien styles. The garden beds had both earth vegetables and alien plants that were grown from seeds that were saved from the ships. Kids from nearby schools came every week to learn with young aliens. Vera had become a bit of a local star by appearing in videos that taught people about the invasion and what happened after it. She was teaching a group of teens about her home world today with a holographic projector that humans and aliens had made together. Vera said, "My world is colder and darker than Earth." She spoke English well, but with an accent. We evolved in caves deep underground. When we finally reached the surface, we saw stars for the first time. We thought they were gods. Her skin rippled with memory. That was 1500 years ago for you. Since then, we reached those gods, beat them, and forgot what it was like to be small and look up in awe. A student raised her hand. Do you want to go home? For a moment, Vera was quiet. I miss what I thought it was. But I can't go back to what I know it really is, a culture without heart. Earth isn't my home, but maybe it could be if you let us. That was the question that everyone was talking about around the world. Not what to do with the aliens, but if they could stay. The debate raged across every platform, in every country. News cycles were full of arguments for and against. But something interesting was happening. The longer humans spent with the aliens, the more they saw them not as threats but as refugees from their own cultural limitations. Dr. Rodriguez spoke in front of Congress in favor of permanent settlement. She said, these beings came as conquerors and became students. They've helped make big strides in medicine, energy, and restoring the environment. More importantly, they've shown real regret and a desire to change. If we say once an enemy, always an enemy, what kind of example do we set? Where does that leave room for growth and redemption? The other side also spoke out. Senator Crawford spoke passionately about the lives lost, the trauma suffered, the risk of future betrayal. How do we know this isn't a long game? How can we trust beings whose culture values conquest above all? Major Lee Wei, invited to speak, provided a soldier's perspective. Trust is earned, and they're earning it daily. But beyond trust, there's strategy to consider. We have aliens from a spacefaring civilization willing to help us understand the universe. They can teach us about threats we don't know exist. Is it wise to send that knowledge away, if we even could? The aliens themselves were the ones who made the change. Commander Jin, along with Theron and a few other older aliens, wrote what they called the Covenant of Earth. It was a formal rejection of their old culture and an embrace of human values, or at least an effort to find common values that both species could agree on. The document, which was written in both English and the alien language, promised to not use violence, participate in democracy, exchange cultures, and most importantly, raise alien children according to human-like rules that valued individual choice over set roles. "We know you have no reason to believe us," Theron said in a speech that was broadcast around the world. "We came here with words of conquest, but words are cheap. We offer you this, hold us accountable. Judge us not by what we say, but by what we do. Give us the chance to show that beings can change, that cultures can evolve, and that former enemies can become future allies." Lieutenant Carlos Mendez set up a football game between humans and aliens in Sao Paulo. The aliens had never played sports before because their culture thought they were a waste of time. But Carlos wouldn't give up. "Sport teaches you to compete without killing, to win without destroying, and to lose with grace," he told LYSS, who had become an unlikely friend. "It's civilization in miniature." The match was a mess and very funny. Aliens didn't get fouls and kept trying to use their height to their advantage. People couldn't keep up with aliens' speed. But both sides laughed, real, happy laughter that crossed species lines. When the match ended, humans won, barely. Both teams collapsed together in exhausted camaraderie. "This is fun," LYSS said, the word still strange in her mouth. "We weren't allowed to have fun. Only purpose. But isn't fun its own purpose?" "Now you get it," Carla said with a smile. These small moments, multiplied across dozens of facilities worldwide, were changing the narrative. Public opinion shifted slowly but steadily. Polls showed that more and more people wanted aliens to be able to stay, but only under certain conditions. There was a lot of talk about the conditions, which included monitoring, integration programs, contribution requirements, and cultural education. But the acceptance that was there was growing. People were starting to understand that they had a once-in-a-lifetime chance to be the first species to turn former conquerors into citizens by choice instead of force. Stryker's martial arts dojo in Moscow had changed into a philosophy center. Humans and aliens discussed concepts of honor, duty, sacrifice, and strength. The talks were deep and showed how both species thought about these ideals in both similar and different ways. One alien warrior said, "In our culture, strength was absolute. The strong ruled and the weak served. It was that simple." "But that's not strength," a Marine from Earth said in response. "That's just power. Strength is having power and choosing not to use it. Strength is protecting the weak when you could take advantage of them. Strength is discipline over mere force." People recorded and shared these talks a lot. They became part of educational curricula, helping younger generations understand the complexity of the situation. Teenagers who had grown up during the invasion had a different point of view than their parents. They had seen the fear and the change. Many argued that rejecting the aliens now would betray everything humanity had claimed about mercy and redemption. Dr. Rodriguez got news that changed everything in Denver. Kale's team had a big breakthrough. They had built a prototype communication device that might be able to send a message to the alien homeworld using both human quantum computing and alien engineering. It would take decades to arrive, Kale explained. But we could send it. Tell them what happened here. Warn them about Earth's unique properties. And, he paused, tell them about what we've learned. About human values. About a different way to exist in the universe. Elena thought about what it meant. That message won't go over well with your leaders. Yes, Kale said. But maybe some people will listen. Maybe I can plant seeds of change in my culture like they were planted in me. Isn't that worth a shot? Elena didn't have the authority to make the choice. She gave it to President Walsh, who called another international council together. There was a lot of arguing. Some people said that any contact with the alien civilization was risky. Some people saw a chance to change the whole species' mind about peace. Marcus Chen strongly supported the idea of trying to make contact. We have a chance to show an entire civilization that there's another way besides conquest. That species can live together. If even a small number of their people listen, we could stop future invasions, not just of Earth, but of many other worlds. The vote was close, but ultimately, permission was granted. With help from humans, Kale and his team started writing a message that would be the first time people on Earth would talk to an alien civilization on purpose. The message was carefully written. To the leaders and people of our homeworld, We came to conquer Earth and failed. But in failure, we discovered something our culture never taught us, that true power lies not in domination but in compassion, not in conquest but in coexistence. The humans of Earth showed us mercy when they could have shown us destruction. They taught us that strength includes gentleness, that intelligence includes emotion, that victory includes knowing when not to fight. We have been wrong about power, about purpose, about what it means to be an advanced civilization. This message comes not as defeat, but as discovery. There is a better way, and it is being lived on this small blue world. We ask you to consider it. We ask you to learn as we have learned. We remain on Earth not as prisoners, but as students of a different kind of strength. 7 months after the invasion, the message was sent in late spring. It would travel for decades, and no one knew if anyone would ever get it, let alone pay attention to it. But it meant something important, the idea that change was possible, even on a large scale. On Earth, though, practical things needed to be taken care of. If the aliens were going to stay, they needed permanent homes, to be a part of society, and rights and duties. The United Nations set up the Department of Interspecies Relations to deal with this strange situation. It was led by Ambassador Chen, who is not related to Marcus. Her first move was to ask representatives from other countries to help write policies for integration. Jin was surprised and asked, "You want us to help decide how we're governed?" "It's called democracy," Ambassador Chen explained. "I know this is a revolutionary idea for you, but people who are affected by rules should have a say in making them." "Yes," Jin's skin brightened, which may have been a sign of amusement. "In my culture, we were told what to do. Always. From birth to death. Making choices is uncomfortable. But also." He searched for the word, exhilarating. It took months to write the policies for integration. They included provisions for alien education in human history and culture, requirements for community service and contribution, pathways to citizenship, and protections against discrimination. But they also made sure that aliens could keep parts of their culture that didn't go against human laws and values. Some aliens decided to fully accept human culture. Vera changed her name to Maria, learned Spanish and English fluently, and enrolled in community college to study music therapy. She told Sarah, "I want to help other people heal through sound. As you helped me." Some people kept their alien identity but adopted human values. Kale kept his name but became a proponent of scientific ethics, saying that knowledge should be used to help people, not just give them power. His talks about the duty of scientists spoke to both groups. Some aliens never got used to it. They stayed angry and stuck in their old way of thinking, unable to accept that they had been wrong. They kept these aliens in safer places, not as punishment but because it was necessary. Theron spent hours with them, trying to help them understand, but some people were too set in their ways to change. Theron told President Walsh during one of their regular meetings, "I grieve for them. They are stuck in their own prison because they can't change. Maybe the worst prison of all." 8 months after the invasion, something amazing happened. The first business run by both humans and aliens opened in Tokyo. It was a technology consulting firm, leveraging alien knowledge and human market understanding. In just a few weeks, dozens more businesses like this appeared around the world. Aliens started to show up in public places, not as prisoners, but as members of society. They went to cultural events, worked in offices, and shopped at markets. Each time they showed up, people talked about them and paid attention, but they also became normal. The amazing was becoming normal. The kids who had first gone to special schools now had classmates from other countries in regular schools. Universities taught students about the history and language of aliens. Museums showed things from the crashed ships next to things from human history. There were aliens in TV shows. The music combined styles from both humans and aliens. It wasn't perfect. Prejudice existed. Some people couldn't let go of the past. There were incidents of vandalism, harassment, and even violence from time to time. But each time something happened, society as a whole called for justice and safety. People who attacked aliens were taken to court. Aliens who hurt people had to deal with the consequences. Equality meant that everyone was protected and held accountable in the same way. Sarah Mitchell and Maria played together at a community concert in Chicago. Sarah played the guitar and Maria sang hauntingly along with the music. There were both kinds of people in the audience, kids sitting next to alien elders and teens talking to young aliens about things they both liked. Sarah felt like she understood something differently as she looked out at the mixed crowd. It wasn't about aliens and people anymore. It was just people, even though they were all different kinds of people. People who laughed, cried, hoped, feared, loved, and fought. The differences on the surface, which had once seemed so huge, had faded into the background, showing the common ground. Maria whispered, "We're making history," before they went on stage. "No," Sarah smiled. "We're building the future." The performance was imperfect. Maria's voice cracked at one point. Sarah messed up a chord change. But the audience loved it, not in spite of its flaws, but because of them. Perfection was less compelling than genuine effort and shared joy. As fall approached, almost a year after the invasion, the UN General Assembly held its final vote. It was to formally recognize aliens as permanent residents of Earth, with a path to full citizenship after 5 years of good behavior. There was a 2/3 majority in favor of the vote. President Walsh, addressing both species on the anniversary of the invasion's end, spoke words that would be remembered for generations. "A year ago, ships descended from the stars intent on conquest. Today, their occupants stand among us not as conquerors or prisoners, but as neighbors." This transformation didn't happen through force or surrender, but through a choice, humanity's choice to see potential where others saw only threat, and the aliens' choice to become more than their culture had made them. Together, we've proven that the distance between enemy and ally is shorter than we imagined. That change is possible. That compassion is not weakness but strength. And that the true power to transform the universe lies not in advanced technology or military might, but in the simple, profound decision to treat all conscious beings with dignity and offer them the chance to be better than they were. This is humanity's gift to the universe, not just the lesson we taught our former enemies, but the example we set for any species that might one day find itself capable of both terrible destruction and transcendent creation. We choose creation. We choose hope. We choose the future where species don't conquer worlds, but build them together. The speech was heard all over the world. In facilities that were no longer prisons, in homes where aliens now lived alongside humans, in schools where children of both species learned together, beings of two worlds listened and understood. They were witnessing something unprecedented. The invasion had not worked. But something much bigger than conquest had worked out in its failure. The aliens learned about empathy, strength, and hope from people. The aliens taught people about themselves, including the values they said they believed in and whether they would live by them when they were put to the test. And together, they were making a future that neither species could have imagined on its own. The first full year after the invasion brought problems that no one saw coming. Integration wasn't just a policy decision, it was a daily practice of patience, misunderstanding, breakthrough, and repetition. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had gone from being a researcher to being an administrator, where she helped run the Global Integration Initiative. Her office in Denver served as a central hub for coordinating alien settlement programs worldwide. Housing was the problem today. "We didn't think about how much they needed the environment," Marcus Chen said as he pulled up charts. "The synthetic atmosphere we created works for containment facilities, but scaling it to individual apartments? The costs of building the infrastructure are huge." Elena rubbed her head. "What are the other options?" "Cluster housing. Changed apartment buildings where several alien families share air conditioning and heating systems. It's better, but..." Marcus was unsure. Elena finished by saying, "But it looks like segregation." Exactly what we're trying to avoid. This was the constant balancing act, meeting real needs without making the divisions they had worked so hard to get rid of again. They talked for hours before agreeing on a compromise, buildings that combined standard and modified units, which would encourage mixed communities while recognizing that people have different needs. Ambassador Patel had a different problem in Mumbai. A group of aliens had asked for permission to build a memorial for their dead, the hundreds who had died in the crashes or from environmental problems before humans made the life support systems work better. The request was sensitive. People who survived still mourned their dead. Would memorials for aliens reopen old wounds? Ambassador Patel brought people from both groups together. Stryker, an alien warrior who had learned human martial arts, sat across from a woman whose son had died when a ship crashed into his school. "You want to honor the people who came to kill us?" she asked, her voice tight with pain. "We want to honor those who died without knowing what they were really doing," Stryker said carefully. "They believed they were warriors serving a righteous cause. They were wrong. But they were still living beings with families, with worth. We mourn them while also admitting that they did bad things. Isn't this a human idea, grieving for complicated dead?" The woman was quiet for a long time. At last, she spoke. "Will you also remember what they did when you build your memorial? The truth, not cleaned up?" "Yes," Stryker said right away. "Our children must know. We should never forget why we came here or what we learned. Remember both truths." The Compromise Memorial was built in Mumbai's Peace Park, a shared space honoring all who died during the invasion, humans killed in crashes, aliens who died from Earth's environment, and in the center, a joint monument simply inscribed, "May we learn from loss. We can build from what is left. Let's never forget and always get better." The education project in Berlin had its own problems. In theory, it seemed easy to put alien kids in human schools. In reality, it showed that there were big cultural gaps. Klaus Meyer, a human teacher, was angry when a young alien student named Ren finished a group project by doing all the work himself while the other students watched. "Ren, the point is to work together," Klaus said. Ren said, "I am most efficient," and he really didn't understand. "Why would I let students who aren't as good at it slow down the work?" Because they are learning. Because working together is more important than getting things done quickly. Because being part of a team is more important than doing well on your own. Ren was clearly confused by the idea. In his culture, being efficient was the right thing to do. To do your best, you had to do everything yourself. It didn't make sense to purposefully include people who were less capable. Klaus tried a different approach. "What if I told you that the real skill we're teaching isn't the project itself, but how to work with other people? If you do well on the project but not on teamwork, you failed the real assignment." Ren's skin rippled, which is the alien way of saying "I see." "You are teaching how to get along with others? Cooperation as a skill." "Exactly." Ren said slowly, "This is very human. But I am starting to get it. I work well on my own. But people think that being together is better than being efficient? Now you understand." Thousands of places around the world had these daily lessons in understanding people from other cultures at the same time. They were all small, but together they were changing how both species thought about what was normal. The integration of the economies went surprisingly well in some ways and badly in others. Aliens brought useful skills, like advanced math, engineering ideas, and knowledge of biology. But they had a hard time with human ideas like money, bargaining, and competition in the market. An alien merchant named Tak opened a food stall in Seoul that served traditional alien food that had been changed to make it safe for humans to eat. The food was strange but tasty, with a lot of umami and unexpected textures. But Tak charged each customer a different amount based on what he thought they could pay. A businessman in the area said, "You charged me twice as much as you charged that student." "Yes," Tak said. "You have more money. She has less. This is a fair way to divide things. That's not how capitalism works." The event led to bigger discussions about how aliens see economics. Their society had a central authority that decided how to distribute resources. Everyone got what they needed based on their role. People didn't understand the idea of markets, making money, and getting rich. Some economists who study people thought this was interesting. Professor Yang said in a lecture that went viral, "They're accidentally coming up with new reasons for socialism." At the same time, we're teaching them about entrepreneurship and competition in the market. We are doing the biggest economic experiment in the world right now. But the most important lessons were about resilience itself, how people can bounce back from trauma and make something new. A community project in New Orleans, a city that knew how to rebuild after disasters, brought people and aliens together to fix up a neighborhood that had been damaged when a small scout ship crashed into it. James Washington, whose house had been destroyed, worked with Lyra, an alien who had been on that ship. At first, the awkwardness was clear. "I was piloting," Lyra said quietly one day as she gave James a hammer. "I did this destruction." "I'm sorry." James picked up the hammer and thought about what he had said. "You know what? I was mad. Really mad. I lost my house, my grandma's pictures, and everything else. But I've been watching you work for the last few weeks. You come here every day and work harder than anyone else. Not because you have to, but because you want to fix what you broke." Lyra said, "I can't really fix it. Your grandmother's pictures and your memories are gone." "Yes," James said. "But you're helping to make something new. Not the same, but maybe good in its own way. That counts for something." This scene, seen all over the world, showed humanity's strange genius, the ability to find hope in ruins, to build community from disaster, and to turn tragedy into a chance to grow. The aliens watched and learned. This kind of strength wasn't part of their culture. When things broke, you replaced them. You got rid of people who failed. It was revolutionary to think about how to rebuild while using the broken pieces, to see beauty in scars, and to see failure as a teacher instead of an end point. Theron, who is now a senior advisor on how to integrate aliens, said in an interview that this is true. "Humans have a saying, What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. In my culture, things that don't kill you are just not useful. But I now see the deep truth that people know. Strength doesn't come from avoiding wounds, it comes from learning how to carry them, heal them, and grow around them. Someone who has never failed has never really tried. An alien who has never failed has never been alive. We are learning how to live. There were still medical breakthroughs. The research teams made up of both humans and aliens had made great strides. Dr. Rodriguez stood next to Kale and told everyone about their most recent success, a treatment for Alzheimer's disease that used both alien neural mapping and human stem cell therapy. Elena told the press conference, "My grandmother died from Alzheimer's. Her last years could have been so different if this treatment had been available then. It's not just alien technology or human willpower, it's what we can do together." But she also talked about how hard it is. This treatment costs a lot. We're trying to lower costs, but right now, not everyone can use it. This reveals something we need to address. Equality means nothing if only the wealthy benefit from our progress. This started talks around the world about healthcare, access, and the morals of new technology. The aliens, whose society had universal healthcare, though it was impersonal and focused on efficiency, were confused by human systems that made it hard for people to get medical care if they were rich. One alien doctor asked, "You let people die because they don't have money? This is savage." The accusation hurt because it was true. But it also gave them a chance. People and aliens who worked in medicine started working together to create new models, systems that combined the efficiency of aliens with the compassion of humans, and universal access with individual choice. The first class of the first human-alien school in Tokyo graduated. 8 aliens and 12 humans had been learning together for a year, not just in school but also about life, culture, and getting to know each other. When Yuki, a human student, graduated, he gave a speech that touched both species. "A year ago, I was scared of aliens. They were everything scary about the universe, power we couldn't control, intelligence that could kill us, and the idea that we might be alone and weak. But I learned something this year. We aren't alone anymore. We live next to people from space. And yes, they are different. But being different doesn't mean being an enemy. It just means that there is more to learn, more ways to be, and more things we can do together." Afterward, an alien student said, "I came to this school thinking that humans were primitive. I thought I would learn your simple ways and be bored. I learned instead that my people were primitive in their spirits, imaginations, and ability to grow. You people live with uncertainty, welcome questions that don't have answers, and find happiness in things that aren't perfect. These are skills that are hard to learn. I'm thankful that someone taught me them." Millions of people around the world watched the graduation, where these young people, both human and alien, hugged each other, cried, and promised to stay in touch. It was both normal and amazing, both ordinary and miraculous. As the second year drew near, the truth hit home: this was forever. The aliens weren't going to leave. Earth was their home now. And people had to figure out what that meant in real life, not just in policy debates. There was more mixing in neighborhoods. Workplaces changed to fit both types of animals. Mixed teams were made by sports leagues. Cultural events featured both traditions. And slowly, without anyone noticing, a new culture began to form. It wasn't just human or alien, it was something in between. Maria, formerly Vera, and Sarah Mitchell put out an album called Songs of Two Worlds that mixed music from both human and alien cultures. It should not have worked. The rhythms were strange and the harmonies were new. But it struck a chord with millions who heard two different voices coming together in an unexpected way. Sarah said in an interview, "We didn't try to make music for humans or aliens. We tried to make our music sound like what happens when different beings try to understand each other." Stryker opened a dojo in Moscow that was open to both species. The classes combined martial arts for humans with physical training for aliens to make something new. They made a place where both species could learn to trust each other with their bodies, safety, and growth. Stryker told a mixed class, "In combat, you have to trust your partner not to hurt you. This is real vulnerability. This is where real strength starts, choosing to be open with someone who is different from you." The lesson was useful in many areas of life, not just martial arts. President Walsh called a special session as winter approached again, marking 18 months since the invasion. "We've been working on integration, coexistence, and learning how to live together. But we need to ask a more difficult question: where are we going? Not just living together, but what comes next?" The answers varied. Some people thought of Earth as the world of humans with aliens as guests. Some people thought of it as a world that both species shared and owned. Some people thought of something even more radical, a civilization that went beyond species and was based on shared values instead of shared biology. Theron came up with an idea that many people liked: let Earth become a beacon. A world where beings from different stars don't fight or give up, but work together in a real way. When other species look at us, let them see not humans who defeated aliens, or aliens who learned from humans, but conscious beings who chose cooperation over conflict. Show the world that intelligence can beat violence. The vision was ambitious, perhaps naive. But it helped the integration work get done every day. We could ask ourselves with every policy, program, and interaction: are we building a civilization that shows that cooperation is possible? More and more, the answer was yes. Not perfectly and not without effort, but both species were learning that resilience isn't about going back to what was, but about growing into what could be. And as humanity grew, it taught its most important lesson yet: that the greatest strength is not the ability to win, but the bravery to keep getting better. 2 years after the invasion, the Global Unity Summit met in Geneva. In the historic Assembly Hall, representatives from every country sat next to elected alien delegates. The scene itself was revolutionary, beings from two worlds talking to each other as equals. The proceedings began with Ambassador Chen. We come together to talk about our future. The question is no longer if we can live together, but how we will do so. The goals were high: to explore space together, fix the environment, develop technology, and set up the first real interspecies government. Dr. Elena Rodriguez gave the idea for space exploration. The alien ships can't be used on Earth, but they do have records of star charts, habitable worlds, and technology for traveling through space. With human creativity and willpower, we could make a new generation of spacecraft. Not to conquer, but to explore and, if necessary, to defend. The proposal generated fierce debate. Some people were afraid to make the technology that almost killed them again. Some aliens were afraid that going back to space might bring back their old cultural programming that made them want to conquer. Kale, who is now seen as a leader in the alien community, talked about both issues. The technology itself is not biased. It is purpose that matters. We break the cycle that brought us here if we build ships to explore, learn, and find new life and treat it with respect instead of trying to control it. We change into something new. A scientist who was a person raised her hand. But what about the Earth? We have environmental crises, poverty, disease. Shouldn't we fix our own world before trying to fix someone else's? Maria, who used to be Vera, gave a view from her unique position between the two cultures. These goals are not separate. Space technology can help us solve problems on Earth, like solar panels in space, mining asteroids for resources, and processes that work in the atmosphere. And healing the Earth teaches space exploration what it needs to know. We must do both. Not one or the other, but all of it together. The argument went on for days, but in the end, the framework for joint development was approved. There would be strict rules about what is right and wrong at every step of space exploration, and both humans and aliens would work together. The goal is to send the first joint mission to a world that might be able to support life within 10 years. The mission will not be to claim the world, but to study it and see if it already has life that needs to be protected. In the meantime, environmental restoration projects gave people a common goal right away. Earth's climate crisis had been accelerated by the invasion. Crashed ships had caused fires, displaced populations, and disrupted ecosystems. The crisis did, however, open up chances for people to work together. In the Amazon, human environmental scientists and alien biologists worked together to come up with new ways to plant trees. The aliens knew more about genetic engineering than humans did at the time. They worked together to make tree species that grow quickly and are tough enough to fix damaged rainforests in decades instead of centuries. Lyra, the pilot who crashed in New Orleans, said as she planted modified seedlings next to James Washington, "We destroyed so much. This doesn't fix it, but it helps." "It's more than helping," James said as he watched the little tree grow. "It's proving we learned something. That we are better when we are together." Similar projects started up all over the world. In the Arctic, teams from different countries worked together to study climate change and come up with new ways to stabilize ice. They built floating research stations in the Pacific to keep an eye on the health of the ocean. They tried out terraforming methods in the Sahara that could bring back land that had been damaged. The aliens brought advanced technology, but humans brought something just as important: passion. The aliens knew how ecosystems worked, but humans felt a deeper connection to Earth than the aliens did at first. "You love your world," Theron observed during a visit to a restored wetland in Vietnam. My kind saw planets as things we could use. You think of them as homes? No, more than just homes. As living things that need care. This is deep. The land gives us life, said a Vietnamese farmer whose family had worked the land for generations. We have to give back. This isn't hard, it's just the right thing to do. It's just right, Theron said again. Morality without efficiency. My people lost this understanding a long time ago, and I'm not sure we ever had it. But maybe we can learn it here. Shared purpose looked different in cities. Teams with people from different backgrounds worked on social issues like homelessness, poverty, and unequal education. Aliens brought new ideas that weren't based on what people thought. People brought with them a lot of knowledge about how complicated their own societies were. In Detroit, a city that was having a hard time but was getting better after the invasion, an alien named Cree worked with community organizer Michelle Davis to change the welfare system. Cree's alien background, where resources were given out based on need, and Michelle's understanding of human dignity and choice came together to make something new. Michelle said, "We need safety nets that don't feel like cages. Your people know how to make sure that everyone's basic needs are met. But we also need systems that help people follow their own dreams and make their own choices." The resulting program became a model, providing guaranteed basics while creating pathways for people to pursue their own goals. Within a year, Detroit's poverty rate had dropped significantly, and the model was being adopted worldwide. But the most important common goal was the creation of the Joint Council, a new government body in charge of human-alien relations and shared projects. The way the council was set up was new. Equal representation from both species, decisions requiring consensus, and built-in mechanisms for addressing conflicts without resorting to force. It was democracy that had changed to work in a civilization with many different species. The first vote that was contested almost broke the weak system. The problem was what to do with the few dozen aliens who didn't want to fit in and held on to their old culture of hierarchy and conquest. Most of the human representatives wanted to keep the aliens in separate areas, not cruelly, but separate from society. A delegate from Brazil said, "They're dangerous. They haven't changed, and maybe they can't. We can't put everyone in danger." There were different opinions among alien representatives. Some people agreed with containment. Some people, like Stryker, said that a different approach was needed. "This is my family," Stryker said, his voice full of emotion that few people had heard from him before. "I was like them. I thought the same way they did. But I changed because you let me, gave me the chance, and gave me a reason. Do we deny them what was given to me?" A human delegate said, "You wanted to change. They don't." Stryker said, "I didn't want to change. Change was scary, uncomfortable, and against everything I knew. But it could happen. Even though I didn't want it to happen, it did because you made it possible for things to change. These aliens are stuck not only in buildings, but also in old ways of thinking. Maybe they need a different approach, not more containment, but more involvement." For weeks, there was a heated debate. In the end, a compromise was reached, a specialized program for resistant aliens that includes psychological support, cultural education, and gradual integration with strict monitoring. It was kind but careful, giving people a chance while keeping them safe. "This is our test," President Walsh said as they voted. "Can we give the hardest cases the same grace that we gave the ones that adapted quickly? Can we be patient with people who have trouble changing?" The vote passed by a small margin. The program would be put into action, constantly reviewed, and changed as needed. It wasn't a perfect answer, but it was a human one, messy, hopeful, and open to trying. While the council dealt with bigger issues, smaller communities kept working on their daily lives together. In schools, textbooks were changed to include both alien and human history. This taught kids that civilization wasn't one thing, but many. Sarah Mitchell, who is now an educational consultant, helped make a curriculum that treated the cultures of both species as equally valid and worth studying. She saw kids in her classroom who couldn't remember a time when aliens weren't their neighbors. For them, mixed-species friendships were normal. She asked a 10-year-old girl, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" The girl said with confidence, "An interspecies ambassador. I want to help people and aliens understand each other better. If we meet other species, we might be able to help them too." The casual assumption that meeting other species was inevitable, and that treating them well was obvious, marked a generational shift. The kids who grew up in this new world had different ideas than their parents. These ideas could change civilization in ways that adults couldn't even begin to imagine. The cultural synthesis in the arts led to some amazing works. Movies had mixed casts and told stories about how both species lived. Music festivals featured both human and alien performers, who often worked together. Literature looked at themes of identity, belonging, and change from the point of view of both humans and aliens. A human-alien writing team wrote a book called Children of Two Worlds that became a bestseller. It told the story of a human girl and an alien boy, both orphaned by the invasion, who became friends in its aftermath. The book was simple and aimed at kids, but people of all ages liked it. In their introduction, the author said, "We are all children of two worlds now. Earth and stars. The past and the future. What we were and what we are now. We live in the journey between." The Joint Council announced their biggest project yet, Unity City, a new city that will be built from the ground up to be home to people of all species. The city would be built on land that was once disputed in the Middle East. It would be a symbol of cooperation and a place to try out living together. "This city will have no visitors or hosts of any kind," said Zara Osman, the project's lead architect. "Every building, system, and public space is made for everyone. Not changed, but made on purpose for all of us." The building project itself showed how people could work together for a common goal. Thousands of workers, both human and alien, worked together, learning from each other, sharing skills, and making friends through hard work and success. Cree, the alien who helped redesign Detroit's welfare system, worked on the social infrastructure of Unity City. They said, "A city is not buildings. It's how people take care of each other. We're not just building houses, we're building a community. This is the art that people are best at, making people feel like they belong by caring and intending to do so." The change was clear as the third year drew closer. Earth was no longer a place where people lived with aliens. It was changing into something new, a real civilization where both species worked together and gained from the whole. There were still problems. Discrimination continued. Conflicts arose from cultural misunderstandings. Both species were affected by differences in the economy. But the path was clear: forward, together, towards something that had never happened before. Dr. Rodriguez wrote in her popular blog after 3 years of change, "We didn't win the invasion with weapons. Values changed it for us. And by doing that, we changed who we are. Every day, we show that the gap between enemy and ally, between different and dangerous, and between them and us can be crossed with patience, bravery, and a commitment to seeing the humanity, or the potential for it, in all conscious beings. This is our gift to the universe, proof that civilization can go beyond war. That intelligence can choose to be kind. That we can make the future better than the past if we're brave enough to work together to do it." The words struck a chord with both species. They were carved into the Joint Council chamber, printed on the cornerstone of Unity City, and taught to kids in schools all over the world. But the memorial in Mumbai may have been the most powerful symbol of shared purpose that came from an unexpected place. On the 3rd anniversary of the invasion, people from both species came together for a ceremony. Stryker, the warrior who had learned so much about honor and strength from humans, spoke for the aliens. "We came to your world to take it over. We are citizens when we leave here. Not because we had to, but because we were changed. You held up a mirror to us, and instead of seeing who we were, we saw who we could be. We are proud of this change. Our goal is to make this shared future happen. May we be worthy of the mercy you showed us." Maria sang a song she had written that combined human and alien musical styles to honor both the pain and the growth. Her voice rose above the quiet crowd, carrying both sadness and hope. And when she was done, people and aliens stood together in silence, thinking about the past and making plans for the future. Some cried. Both species had learned how to cry together. Others hugged, and love that would have seemed impossible 3 years ago was now normal. The scene was shown all over the world and even to other planets. Kale's team had sent a message that was traveling through space, bringing recordings of moments like this with it. The alien homeworld might get it in a few decades. They might see what had happened to their failed invasion. As the stranded aliens learned, they might learn that the true power of humanity is not in weapons or resistance, but in the revolutionary act of choosing to build instead of destroy, to include instead of exclude, and to grow instead of dominate. No one knew if that message would ever be heard or if it would ever change anything outside of Earth. But at this one moment of shared memory and hope on this small blue planet, it didn't matter. They had each other. They had a reason to be. They had to make a future. And for beings who had seen the end of the world and chosen to start over, that was all that mattered. 3.5 years after the invasion, the unthinkable happened. A human and an alien got married. David Chen, a human engineer from San Francisco, and an alien he called Luna met while working on atmospheric processes in Unity City. Their relationship had grown slowly because of cultural differences and the weight of the past. But it turned out that love crossed species lines. The news shocked both groups. Some people saw it as the best example of integration. Some people saw it as betrayal or perversion. The couple got threats from extremists on both sides, humans who thought it was species contamination and aliens who thought it was abandoning their culture. We knew this would cause a lot of problems, David told reporters at a very controlled press conference. But Luna and I aren't trying to make a statement. We just fell in love. Is that really so hard to get? Luna, using the neural translator that had become the norm for public communication, said, "In my culture, love as you know it did not exist. Reproduction was a biological function that was planned and managed. But David taught me what it means to choose your partner, to value another being's happiness above your own efficiency. This is what I choose." The wedding sparked larger conversations about the limits of integration. Should the two species really come together, or should they stay separate but equal? Was it even possible for biology to work together? What would the children look like, if any? Dr. Rodriguez, who is now in charge of the Biological Integration Research Institute, answered these questions in his usual straightforward way. Biologically, it seems impossible for humans and aliens to reproduce naturally because our genes are just too different. But with advanced methods that mix the genetics of both species, we might be able to make viable offspring. But we need to ask ourselves if we should before we ask if we can. The moral consequences were huge. The Joint Council set up a committee to look into the matter, but before they could come to any conclusions, Luna announced that she was pregnant. They had made the first human-alien hybrid embryo through advanced artificial genetic integration. The news spread like wildfire all over the world. Some people thought it was the future of both species, a real sign of hope. Some people thought it was terrible. Both sides' extremist groups called for an end. Moderate voices told people to be careful and study things carefully. President Walsh, who is in her second term and is seen as the architect of integration, spoke about the crisis. A child is being born who will be part of both our worlds. We can react with fear and rejection, or we can show the same kindness that made us great. I know which choice is the right one for us. Security around David and Luna intensified. They were put in protective custody, and both human and alien doctors closely monitored the pregnancy. Arya Chen was born 9 months later. It was hard to put into words how beautiful she was. She was clearly both species, but she was also her own person. Her eyes were big like her alien mother's, but they were a little warmer. Her skin had a soft shine, but it was brown instead of Luna's silver. She looked like a person, but she moved like an alien. When she cried for the first time, both species heard something familiar in that sound: life, asking to be seen and cared for. The picture of David holding Arya, with Luna next to them, and both parents looking at their daughter with the same amazement that all new parents feel, went around the world. You couldn't see a threat in that picture. It was a family. "She's not a symbol," David said firmly during their first interview after the baby was born. "She is our daughter. But if people see her and understand that we are now one civilization with one future, then that's fine. Let her be that hope. But first, she's just Arya. Our little girl." The birth marked a turning point. It made the idea of integration feel very real. This child would need both human and alien friends. She would go to schools that taught both cultures. She would have to find her way in a world that was still learning how to mix species. But Arya wasn't alone for long. 3 more hybrid kids were born in the next year. In 2 years, dozens. Mixed families became another part of the new normal. They were controversial at first, but more and more people accepted them. The kids made both species think deeply about who they were. Was Arya a person? Is it an alien? Both? Anything new? The answer seemed to be yes. She was all of those things at the same time. And by being all of them, she went beyond the categories that had once seemed unchangeable. In the meantime, the message that Kale's team had sent years before finally got there. The answer was shocking, not because it came, no one was sure it would, but because of what it said. The home planet of the aliens who sent the invasion force sent a short, mysterious message back: understood. There are divisions. Some people listen. Some will come. Not in peace. Prepare. The Joint Council met in an emergency session. It seemed clear what the message meant. Not all of the aliens agreed with what people on Earth had learned. Some part of the alien empire, some group, was planning to come to Earth, and they weren't going to be friendly. Fear spread across the world. After years of working together, building trust, and making a community, the threat of a new invasion brought back old fears. But this time, the answer was different. President Walsh wasn't the only one who spoke to the world. Theron stood next to her, along with Commander Jean, Maria, Stryker, and a dozen other well-known aliens who are now fully part of Earth society. "We may have a threat," Walsh said in a calm voice. "But we face it together. The beings that might come are not the same as the ones that live with us now. They aren't your friends, co-workers, or neighbors. They're an old empire that won't let go of the past. And we will show them what Earth has become, not a world of humans, not a world of aliens, but our world. And we will protect it together." Next, Theron spoke. His old voice carried over the airwaves. "I have lived a long time. I have seen my people take over worlds. I never thought I would live to protect one. But this world made me who I am. It gave me a reason to do more than just be efficient. It taught me things I didn't know were important. If my old civilization tries to fight that, they won't find easy prey. Instead, they'll find a civilization united by something stronger than ships or weapons, a common goal and caring for each other. They will discover what I did, that the true power of humanity is limitless and spreads." The planning started right away. Human and alien engineers worked together to make defense systems that used Earth's defenses and aliens' knowledge of their own technology. They weren't just making weapons, they were also making deterrents. They were making a defense that was strong enough to stop an invasion without having to kill everyone. Kale said during a design meeting, "We learned from our mistakes. When my people came, we didn't think much of Earth. Anyone who comes next has been warned, they know that Earth has changed. The best way to protect ourselves is to make it too expensive to invade and too unlikely to succeed." But while the military and technical communities got ready for a possible war, something unexpected happened. The people didn't let fear destroy what they had built. People in Unity City, which has been open for 2 years, held a festival to mark 4 years since the invasion. Rachel Kim, one of the organizers, said, "We're not going to stop living because of threats. We've made something beautiful here. We're going to have a party for it." The festival turned into a huge party that drew in hundreds of thousands of people, both human and alien, as well as families that were made up of both species. There was music, art, food from both cultures, and displays of how science and engineering have worked together to make things better. Aria Chen, who is now a toddler, played with kids of both species without worrying about it and had a great time. People saw the future they had been building when they saw her, who was impossible to categorize and completely happy. And they promised to keep it safe again. Sarah Mitchell and Maria sang their newest song, "We Are One World," which had become an unofficial anthem for the integration movement. Thousands of people joined in as they sang, their voices from 2 worlds blending together. "We were strangers from the stars, you reached down to heal our scars, now we're stronger, you and me one world, one destiny, different voices, same song, together we belong." The words were simple, like those of a child. But they got something important. The beings who were singing weren't denying their differences, they were celebrating how those differences made the whole better. Dr. Rodriguez, who was in the VIP section, felt tears on her cheeks. She had been there since the beginning, saving Kale's life on the first day and working for years to make integration work. Seeing it come to life, with thousands of beings from 2 worlds living together as neighbors and friends, was too much to take in. Marcus Chen, her longtime colleague, handed her a tissue. "Why are you crying in public?" Dr. Rodriguez, that was very unprofessional. She laughed. "Let the record show that the lead scientist got upset at a party." "That's fine with me. We did it," Marcus said softly. "We really did it. Made a civilization with people of different species. It's real, even though it's messy and not perfect." Elena agreed, "It's real. And worth keeping safe. No matter what comes from the stars, they'll find that we're not the same world they would have found 4 years ago. We are stronger now. Not because of weapons, but because we learned to fight for each other instead of against each other." As night fell on Unity City, the festival transformed. Lights, both human and alien, lit up the streets. People of both species put on shows for crowds. Street vendors sold fusion food that wasn't around 4 years ago. Kids ran around freely, some were completely human, some were completely alien, and some were a beautiful mix of the two. David and Luna sat in a quiet part of a park with Arya between them and watched their daughter try to catch fireflies. David said softly, "No matter what happens, we gave her this. A place where she fits in. Where she's not weird or different, just herself." Luna's skin changed in patterns of happiness. "She will never know the world I came from, where kids were put into roles and happiness didn't matter as much as getting things done. She will only know Earth, where a child can chase lights in the dark just to be happy. That's very poetic, David said with a smile. I learned from my human, Luna said in a tone that could have been teasing. He tells me to accept all my feelings, even the ones that aren't useful, like sentimentality. Especially emotions that don't work well, David said, pulling both of his loves close. Those are the best. Scenes like this happened all over the world. People and aliens living together, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. They had decided to look beyond species and see each person as valuable. They had decided to build instead of tear down. They chose to be weak instead of getting revenge, and in that choice, they found strength. That night, as President Walsh got ready for bed, her security chief brought her the daily briefing on the possible threat that was coming. The news wasn't good. Their best guess was that a fleet might arrive in 2 years. Are we ready? She asked. We're as ready as we can be, he said. Our defenses are strong. But, you should know that a lot of the alien residents have been volunteering to help with defense. Not just military, but also medical, engineering, and support. They are ready to protect Earth. Walsh was filled with emotion. Because it's their home now. Yes, They're not doing it for the good of people. They are doing it for the planet. For what we've made together. They care about protecting this civilization just as much as we do. After he left, Walsh stood at the window and looked out at Washington, D.C. The city was calm, with lights twinkling and both human and alien citizens going about their evening routines. Somewhere out there, a child like Arya was sleeping soundly and dreaming the same kinds of dreams that mixed-race kids do. They made this. Through pain and patience, mistakes and successes, and refusing to give up on the radical idea that former enemies could become family. And now, facing a potential threat from the stars, they would defend it. Not just with the power of people. Not just with technology from other worlds. But with the unprecedented strength that came from beings who'd learned to be vulnerable with each other, to trust across difference, to fight not for tribal survival but for shared civilization. That was the real power of people, the ability to inspire others to be like them, to create community where there wasn't one before, to choose connection over isolation even when it was hard, scary, or required believing in change when it seemed impossible. And as Earth got ready to deal with whatever came from the stars, it did so as one world, one civilization, and one people. Different in biology but the same in purpose. 4 years ago, the invasion had failed. But its failure had become the base for something much bigger than what conquest could ever build. And no matter what came next, they would face it together, just like they had learned to face everything else. The 2 years went by in a blur of getting ready and living. Earth had changed the way it thought about space. It was no longer just planning for exploration, it was also planning for defense if necessary and for welcome if possible. Commander Alexei Volkov, human, and Commander Zhen, alien, led the Joint Defense Initiative, which made an amazing system. Orbital platforms used both human and alien technology. Deep space was watched by early warning systems. And maybe most importantly, response protocols put more emphasis on deterrence and communication than on immediate aggression. We don't know who's coming or why, Volkov said in a briefing. The message said there were hostile elements, but that doesn't mean everyone coming is hostile. We need to be ready for conflict while also being open to talking. The fleet got there on a Tuesday morning, 6 years after the first invasion. The ships were huge, much bigger than the ones that had come before. They were in the hundreds and were at the edge of the solar system, slowly and carefully making their way to Earth. Emergency plans were put into action all over the world. But there was no panic this time. People and aliens who lived on Earth knew what was going to happen. They were ready. They were all set. President Walsh, who is in the last year of her last term, spoke to the world one last time. 6 years ago, ships came to conquer. Today, more ships come. But today's Earth is not the Earth they would have found then. We are all united, ready, and determined to protect our civilization, both human and alien. We will offer peace, but we will not give up what we've built. The first message from the fleet that was coming came when both sides reached the asteroid belt. It was just audio, and the voice that came through spoke in an alien language. But Earth now had advanced translation systems. Earth, we come as the remnant, those of our civilization who learned from your message and saw what you showed our stranded people. We do not come to conquer, we come seeking asylum. People in the Joint Council chamber started talking about it in surprise. Asylum? Not an invasion? A second voice came through, harder and colder. Attention Earth. We are the Eternal Fleet, representing true civilization. The weaklings you harbor are traitors to our people. Surrender them, and we will leave your world intact. Refuse, and we will take them by force and subjugate your species for harboring them. It was clear right away that two groups of aliens were fighting each other. One had taken in the ideas from Earth about kindness, working together, and making changes. The other person held on to the old ways of conquering and building hierarchies. And Earth was stuck in the middle. Volkov asked the scanning teams, how many ships per faction? Remnant faction, about 60 ships, mostly civilian. Eternal Fleet, 140 warships, heavily armed. The numbers weren't good. Even with Earth's defenses, it would be terrible to face that many warships. The Remnant couldn't fight them, or else they would have done it before coming here. The debate in the Joint Council chamber was short but very heated. A military advisor said, we can't fight the Eternal Fleet and protect the Remnant. The strategic choice is to give up the Remnant and save Earth. Not at all, Theron's old voice cut through the conversation. The Remnant is everything we've worked for, proof that culture can change and beings can evolve beyond conquest. If we give them up to save ourselves, we betray every principle that makes us who we are. What do you think we should do? The advisor asked. Suicide by idealism? Maria stood, her mixed cultural perspective valuable as always. We do what Earth does best, we find the third option. A plan came together in a matter of hours. It was bold, risky, and very human in its hopefulness. Earth would ask the Remnant to hide behind its defenses. Instead of fighting the Eternal Fleet, Earth would talk to them. A doubtful diplomat asked, you want to talk to beings who are set on conquest? Dr. Rodriguez, who is now a special advisor on alien psychology, said, the Eternal Fleet is coming because they see the Remnant as traitors. But what they haven't seen is what happened here, actual living proof that their worldview is wrong. We show them. We make them witness what we've built. And we make them choose, evolve or be left behind as the universe moves forward without them. And what if they decide to fight anyway? Then we protect our people, all of them. But we always try peace first. The Remnant ships were led to places behind Earth's protective barrier. Families, children, and older people on board watched in awe as Earth's diverse population worked together, with humans and aliens moving as one. An elder named Vex spoke to her people on the lead Remnant ship. When we left, many said we were fools for giving up strength for weakness. They said the humans would destroy us and that the message was a lie. But look, they welcome us and protect us. Maybe we were right to believe in this new way. The Eternal Fleet, seeing that their target was safe, asked for a deal. Representatives from Earth, the Remnant, and the Eternal Fleet met in a neutral area on a specially built station. President Walsh was in charge of Earth's delegation, which included Theron, Jean, Stryker, and Dr. Rodriguez. The Eternal Fleet sent their supreme commander, a scary person they called the Hegemon. The Hegemon's ultimatum started the meeting, you are harboring traitors. You have 48 hours to turn them over, or else. We take in refugees, Walsh said calmly. People who wanted a better way and found it. Just like the people who came here 6 years ago. You call them traitors, but we call them citizens. The Hegemon said, they are weak. They gave up strength for emotion and efficiency for emotion. They are lost to true civilization. Theron, who had lived longer than anyone else in the room, spoke with quiet authority. I was once you, Hegemon. I believed what you believe. I measured strength by conquest and worth by domination. But I was wrong. And you are wrong. True civilization is not measured by how much you can destroy, but by what you can create and protect. Words, the Hegemon said. You lost, were conquered, and now you make excuses for your weakness. Then see how strong we are, Stryker said. Come to Earth and see what we've built. See what happens when beings choose to work together instead of fight. If you still think we're weak after that, we'll talk about terms then. The Hegemon stopped, clearly not expecting this offer. You would let me see your defenses and weaknesses. We would show you our truth, Walsh said. We could have killed your stranded people 6 years ago, but instead we saved them and made them part of us. We're stronger now than we were then, not because of that choice, but because of it. Come see why. The Hegemon agreed after talking to his commanders. A small group from the Eternal Fleet would come to Earth for 3 days. In the end, they would choose to fight or back down. The visit was carefully planned, but it wasn't staged. Earth would show the Eternal Fleet group everything they had built, both the good and the bad. First, the delegates went to Unity City to see the fully integrated metropolitan area. They saw kids from both worlds playing together in parks. They saw families with different species going about their daily lives. They saw places where both species could get the same medical care, cultural centers that mixed both traditions, and technological centers that worked together. A female commander named the Praetor stopped at a playground as one of the delegates. She saw Arya Chen, who is now 6 years old and beautiful in a way that is a mix of species, setting up a game for kids of all kinds, including humans, aliens, and hybrids. That kid, the Praetor said. Is she both? Is she biologically integrated? Yes, she's both human and alien, Dr. Rodriguez said. She's just Arya, a little girl who loves to dance, hates broccoli, and wants to be a scientist like her parents. Such integration is not possible. It is an abomination. Is it? Elena asked in a soft voice. Look at her. Does she look like a monster or like Hope? The Praetor didn't say anything. He just watched Arya laugh as she ran with her friends. Next, the delegates went to a memorial that honored the dead from both species during the first invasion. They saw both humans and aliens grieving together, recognizing their pain but choosing to move on. The hegemon asked, "You honor your conquerors?" A veteran of the war said, "We honor all conscious beings who died. They came as enemies, but they died as people. Some were cruel, some were just following orders, and some were probably questioning the whole thing. Pretending they weren't individuals doesn't make things less complicated." The delegates saw humans and aliens work together on clean energy systems at a joint research center. The Eternal Fleet representatives were clearly upset by how easily they worked together and how they talked to each other and built on each other's ideas. The hegemon asked an alien scientist, "Why don't you dominate them? You know more about a lot of things than most people." The scientist, who was one of the first people to survive the crash, smiled at his human coworker. "Because the goal is not to dominate, but to understand. She knows things I don't, and I know things she doesn't. Together, we know more than either of us alone. This is not weakness, it is strength." The second day, the delegates went to classes at a school that was open to everyone. They saw that the curriculum taught both human and alien history in a fair way, showing the pros and cons of each culture. A human teenager was giving a talk about the first invasion. She told the class, "My uncle died when their ship crashed. I was mad for a long time. But then I learned that the people on that ship weren't monsters, they were just people who had been taught to value the wrong things. Some of them, like Theron and Commander Jin, learned better. That doesn't change what happened, but it does show that people can change." A student from another planet raised his hand. "My parent unit was on that same ship. They died. I was raised by humans who lost family in the crash. They could have hated me, but instead they loved me. I don't understand this, but I'm grateful for it." The Praetor said softly to Rodriguez, "They teach the kids to see both sides." "They teach kids how to see the truth," Elena said. "History isn't just a story of good and bad people. It's about people making choices. We want kids to know that." The third day was all about the arts. The delegates went to a concert with music by mixed groups, an art show with works from both species' creative traditions and new fusion styles, and a play about the invasion that was written by a group of people working together. The play was surprisingly honest. It showed how scared people are and how arrogant aliens are, the deaths and the crashes, the problems with early integration, the prejudice, and the resistance. But it also showed the choices that were made, to help instead of hurt, to understand instead of judge, and to build instead of tear down. When it was over, the audience, who were all very different, gave a long round of applause. The delegates were quiet. President Walsh asked the hegemon to a private dinner that night, just before the last discussion. Just the two of them, simple food, and honest talk. "Why are you doing this?" the hegemon finally asked. "You could have killed our people when they were weak. You could say no to the remnant now and avoid this fight. Why choose the harder path?" Walsh thought carefully about what she said. 6 years ago, we had a choice, become what tried to destroy us or prove we were something better. We chose better. Not because it was easy or safe, but because it was right. Every day since, we've made that same choice. And every day, it gets a little easier because we see what it builds. This civilization we've created, it's not perfect. We still have problems, conflicts, and prejudice. But it's ours, and it's based on principles we believe in, that all conscious beings deserve dignity, that differences enrich rather than threaten, and that the future belongs to those who choose cooperation over conquest. The hegemon said, "These are weak principles," but his voice was losing strength. "Then why are you scared to test them?" Walsh asked. "If we're weak, attack and destroy us." But I don't think you believe that anymore. I think you've seen something in the last 3 days that makes you question everything you thought you knew about strength and civilization. Now you have to decide, are you brave enough to question the most basic beliefs of your culture? The hegemon stood and looked out at the lights of Earth from the orbital station. If I go back to our fleet and tell them to follow your ways, a lot of people will call me a traitor. Some will question my authority. There could be civil war. Yes, Walsh said. Change is rarely easy. But you've seen what happens when people make different choices. Is your current path really so safe? Really so strong? Or is it just what you're used to? The hegemon went back to his fleet. The Joint Council and everyone else on Earth waited for an answer. The next morning, it came. Earth. The Eternal Fleet has talked it over. We are split. Some of us want to fight, and others want to learn. Most of us have made up our minds. There was a pause. We're leaving your space and going back to our own worlds. But we are taking recordings of what we saw here with us. Seeds will be planted. Change will be hard, maybe even impossible. But you have shown us that it is possible. That is both scary and hopeful. We will not bother you or the remnant. This meeting is over. The fleet started to leave Earth, but not all of the ships did. 7 warships and 5 support ships broke formation and sailed toward Earth instead. Earth, this is Commander Praetor. I and those who follow me ask for asylum. We want to learn this new way. We have seen your civilization and want to be a part of it. We ask to stay. The Joint Council quickly agreed. The ships were directed to safe places, and over the next few weeks, several thousand more aliens joined the people of Earth, not as defeated invaders, but as conscious beings looking for a better way to live. Theron and Vex, the remnant elder, met in Unity City. We did it, she said, her voice full of wonder. We showed them, and some listened. Some always listen, Theron said. The question is whether enough people listen to tip the balance. Only time will tell if what we saw today is the start of real change for our people or just an odd event. But it is a start. Earth entered a new phase as the Eternal Fleet left for deep space and the new arrivals started to fit in. They were no longer just a planet that had been invaded and changed it. They were a light that showed that civilization could survive conquest, that species could live together, and that enemies could become family. President Walsh stepped down 6 months after the crisis. In her farewell speech, she talked about the journey. 6 years ago, I told the world we had a choice about who we would be in our darkest moment. I'm proud of the choice we made. We chose compassion over vengeance. We chose to see potential in our enemies. We chose the harder right over the easier wrong. And in doing so, we discovered something profound. Humanity's true power isn't about humans alone. It's about recognizing and cultivating the capacity for growth, change, and connection in all conscious beings. We are human not because of our biology, but because of our values. And those values, compassion, resilience, hope, the refusal to become monsters even when we'd be justified, these are contagious. They spread to anyone willing to embrace them. We didn't just survive an invasion. We transformed it. We transformed ourselves. And now, we're helping transform the galaxy, one choice at a time. Dr. Elena Rodriguez left her job in public service to become a writer. Her book, The Invasion That Failed, How Earth Learned to Be Human, was a hit with both species. She thought about Kale, her first alien patient, who is now a respected scientist and the father of 2 hybrid children. She wrote, 6 years ago, I saved an alien's life without knowing if I should. Today, he's my co-worker, my friend, and proof that the distance between enemy and family is shorter than fear would have us believe. We can all change, we can all grow, and we can all choose to be better than we were yesterday. That's what makes us human, not the technology we build or the wars we win, but the simple, revolutionary act of choosing to grow. Our World, Sarah Mitchell and Maria's last album, was the end of years of working together. The title song had a children's choir made up of kids from integrated schools. Their voices mixed human and alien sounds in a way that was both perfect and imperfect, and it was beautiful. Aria Chen, who is now 7 years old, started 2nd grade. There were human kids, full alien kids, and 3 other hybrid kids in her class. Their teacher, an alien who had come with the Eternal Fleet delegation, taught them math in the morning and philosophy in the afternoon, mixing old and new ideas to make something new. One day, the teacher asked, "What makes someone strong?" A boy said, "Muscles and weapons." A girl from another planet said, "Knowledge and technology." Arya raised her hand in a thoughtful way. "I think it's choosing to help people even when it's hard. Like how Earth helped the aliens when they could have been mean. That's the strongest thing I know. The teacher's skin got brighter, which is the alien version of a smile. Maybe this child, who comes from both of our worlds, knows more about strength than either of us alone. The change was complete but never finished as Earth entered its 7th year of integration. There were always new problems to deal with, like social tensions, managing resources, and cultural misunderstandings. But the foundation was strong, a civilization built on the radical idea that beings of different kinds could share not only space but also purpose. Unity City was now full of people and had become a place where beings from all over the area came. People and aliens worked, lived, loved, fought, made up, and built things together. From the stars we came, different and afraid. In the soil of Earth, we planted something new. Together we grow. This was the city's motto, carved above its main square. On a clear night, people in Unity City could look up and see the memorial satellites in orbit. These lights marked the spots where ships crashed and served as permanent reminders of where the journey began. They looked like more stars, neither praising nor judging the past, just recognizing it. And sometimes, as they looked at those lights, both people and aliens would think about the same deep truth, that Earth's greatest success was the failure of the invasion. Not because they had beaten an enemy, but because they had turned enemies into citizens, conquest into cooperation, and fear into hope. They had shown that civilization's worth wasn't in its weapons or its victories, but in how well it could grow. In its readiness to recognize the humanity in all sentient beings. In its bravery to choose kindness over revenge, which would have been easier. They had told the aliens about people. And by teaching them, they had learned what it really meant to be human. Not a kind. Not a biology. But a way to be in the world. A promise to grow instead of staying the same, to connect instead of being alone, and to have hope instead of giving up. Every day, you have to choose to be better than you were, both as individuals and as a society. And as the lights of Earth shone in the dark, they looked like a beautiful web of human and alien communities from space. They sent a silent message to the universe. We are here. We are not the same. We are all one. And we are proof that the future does not belong to the strong who win, but to the brave who choose to learn. This is what makes people strong. This is what makes the world different. This is how the universe changes, one heart at a time.